気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 18 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J. With me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today?
Pretty well, man. Pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep, that's as far as I'm going to go with that, I think.
All right. Hey, listen, it's 2020, so any day that you're doing well is a victory.
Yeah.
Speaking of victories, Dave, we're going to see a big one today in episode 18
Oh, man.
of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called Protect It, the Mysterious Boys Forest. But of course, before we get into that, Dave, we get to get through our
we're allowed to.
Our officially award-winning opening segment. Dave, shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. What is our first star of the week?
So, man, our first star of the week is Isolation Update. Isolation Update.
Well, Dave, how is your isolation going?
It's actually going okay. I am back at work this week, which means that I spent 6 hours today on Zoom calls, and I haven't even started teaching classes yet.
Cool.
So that's a lot. It's a lot.
Man, it's so...
And that's not great.
It is so weird that for like a cool decade, the only thing anyone ever used consistently for like voice over internet protocol communications was Skype. And then like the day the pandemic started, we're like, so we're done with Skype now, right? It's all Zoom all the time.
I actually don't quite know how that happened. And weirdly, Zoom has now become so prolific that I actually was not using Zoom. I was using Google Meet, which I think I prefer. But yeah, I don't know. Like Zoom just came out of nowhere. I had never heard of it, and then it's all anybody was using. It's very strange.
My company had actually shifted to using Zoom for stuff like this a couple of months before all this happened, so we were actually like on that train anyway. But like, man, if Skype wasn't already owned by Microsoft, I would feel very bad for them. Like, they had been planning for this for like a decade. And then the second everybody needed something like that, the entire world decided in one moment that Skype was just done.
And I have no idea. Like, I would be deeply curious. I'm sure somebody has written an insightful article about the rise of Zoom.
Having used both, I can say that Zoom is better for like work stuff. Like, if I'm in a Zoom meeting with somebody, I can share my screen very easily. Or, like, the person on the other end can share their screen with me. There's stuff like that that's useful that Skype I think, has never had to innovate on because they were so obviously, like, the main choice for so long.
Right.
Unless, like, Skype can do that, and I've just never tried. I don't know.
I just did a quick search for the phrase, the curious rise of Zoom, and I did get a lot of articles that are like, it's weird, right? Anyways, no, it's going fairly well. You know, we're starting back, and we are online for the first couple of weeks, which is killer. I'm very excited that we're at least going to have like that routine. Like, it's a lot more work. Like, it's way more work for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
To be doing all of this online, because like I have to totally rework all of this stuff that I sort of already knew how to do and was prepared for. Like, no teacher I know is excited about not being in the classroom. Like, we would all prefer it, but this is just so obviously the better option.
Right.
But yeah, that's how my isolation's going, Matt. I did it. I cracked 200 pounds. I felt real good about myself,
nice,
and
man.
then I barely did. I was like 199 and a half. And then I like popped back up. So now I'm at like 200 and a half, like right in that zone. But I did get I did hit below that 200 mark for like a day.
I mean, dude, like
But
stuff like
I
that's
felt
gonna
good about
fluctuate. There's never a completely straight line.
Yeah, no, obviously not. Obviously not. But I did. I felt really good about it. How about you, man?
Pretty good. I had a moment the other day. This is actually less related to my isolation and more related to my upstairs neighbor's isolation. But the building I live in, I don't know if I've ever described this on the show before. It's one of those like 4-unit apartments, like two on the left, two on the right. Like, you know, upstairs, downstairs. There's a staircase up the middle, porches in the front, little backyard, one of those deals. Like a quadroplex, I think they're called. Anyway, they're very
That's
common
a fun
around
name.
here.
Even if you're wrong, I like it.
Yeah, I assume that people can imagine it pretty easily. But what this means is that my upstairs neighbor and I share like one half of the basement. And so I get a text from him the other day like, hey, like I am using this time that I'm just at home to clear out the basement. He's actually been doing a ton of like basement stuff recently because the two guys upstairs just have a lot of stuff down there. And they were like, well, let's just get rid of some stuff. And they said like, hey, if you have any like old empty boxes that don't actually need to be down there, why don't you come downstairs and let me know what they are? Because as I'm cleaning up, I can sort of like
I'll just take your stuff.
And then we can actually get some usable space down here again and like reorganize stuff, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm happy that they've taken the initiative on this. But as we were down there, what I realized is that easily half of the stuff that I thought was theirs is just old empty boxes from the guy who used to live up there who moved out 6 years ago.
No,
there's just
that's crazy.
There's just this mountain of old cardboard, and like some of them have a few things in them, but it's very clearly just the stuff that when they were moving out, they got most of the way through like, doing their stuff, and they're like,
nah.
I feel like we've moved everything we care about, so we're just like opening boxes and looking at each other like, is this yours? It's not mine. Okay, we could go through this, but I think we're just both deciding that this is trash and it is going on the curb.
Nice.
So that's my...
I think we did definitely do that. When we were moving out of the triplex that you and I shared, it was we've talked about it before, like it was this very weird thing, like we were kind of squatting for a few months, we're pretty sure, and we don't know who owned the building, but we did definitely live there.
Yeah.
I should let you know, I walk by that building, I walk by that house pretty regularly when I have the twins out for walks. And like, it is definitely occupied. They didn't like knock it down or anything.
Oh yeah, you know, I've driven past it a few times, and the way that I really know that it's a new owner and not just that the old landlord finally got their act together is that a few of the windows have been replaced, and you know the old landlord would never have replaced a window.
He was not going to do that. But when we left, we did definitely were like, well, we're pretty sure like the bank owns this house now and it's getting foreclosed on. So like, we're just not going to worry about it. Like I did leave some stuff there.
Yeah. Well, I
we
mean,
did take the washers and dryers. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah. At that point, like the only concern is like, well, if I don't clean up entirely, I won't get my security deposit back. But like that guy was never going to get in touch with us to send us our security deposits back.
Yeah, that wasn't happening anyway.
So like, well, I don't know. I mean, the people who lived on the second floor had just like left stuff there, and I texted them and I said like, hey, you left your microwave and I don't have one. Can that just be my microwave now? And that is still the microwave that I have.
Dude, I think right before we left, I had made a big porchetta de testa, which is like you get a whole pig's head, just the whole thing, and then you cut the face off of it, is what you do. You just kind of cut the whole face off of it, and then you kind of fold it in a particular way where you tuck the ears down to cover the eye holes. You know, I feel like there are butchering terms that make this sound way less wild. Yeah, if you go to butchery school, they probably don't just say cut the face off, but that's what you're doing. And so and then you like wrap it up with like herbs and stuff and you roast. It's delicious. And then I also made some head cheese, did homemade head cheese with that pig skull, which is you just drop the whole skull in a big old pot of water and you boil it till all the meat comes off, and then you skim that with the gelatin and you put it in it. Anyways, the point of this is that at the end of it, you are left with a like just a pig skull, just with nothing on it. Just a big old pig skull. And I did definitely leave that in like a little old coal cellar in the very back of the basement as like a fun surprise.
Great.
For
Wonderful.
whoever came there
I mean,
next.
listen, based on my recollection of that building, by the time anyone moved into it, that skull had probably been completely devoured by rats.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Or mice. Maybe it was mice. I don't think I ever saw a rat in that building. This was, by the way, lots of great memories in this house.
Wonderful memories.
This is not like a bad house. I just want to be clear.
I
just
think
every
I
house
still
has
lived
mice.
in that. No, wait. I had recently moved out of that house when we started this show.
Yeah. To be clear, every house has mice. You may not have seen them, but if you live in a man-made dwelling, there's mice in it.
That sounds like something that somebody with mice in their house tells people who don't necessarily have mice in their house.
Nah, man. If anybody, the only reason you would not have mice in your house is if you have cats. And I do have cats, and there's still mice in my house every once in a while. Anyways, none of this is the point. Just say hello to your mouse friends. What, Matt, is our second star of the week?
Dave's second star of the week is Bun Vulcan.
Welcome to Bun Vulcan. Now, I know that the flow of conversation, Matt, would indicate that you would then ask me what my Bun Vulcan thing was since you said the last thing, but wildly, I don't actually have a Bun Vulcan thing this week.
Really?
Like, because I was starting, because I was starting school this week.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I knew that I was going back to work. We kind of took the weekend and were like extremely chill and like just went out and did all sorts of stuff. We didn't go out and do all sorts of stuff with the kids. We went to a pick your own peach. We went to an orchard, like a peach orchard.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we've been doing some pick your own fruit stuff because like you can get out of the house and not like, you can stay very far away from people.
Man, it sounds like you should have made a cobbler, and then you would have something to talk about on the segment.
I did think about making a cobbler, and I still may. So I was very dubious. I know I said I didn't have a Bun Vulcan thing. This is only tangentially related. I was very dubious about the whole, like, oh, go pick your own fruit sort of thing. Because what it seemed to me like is that I was using my day off to be a farm laborer, and that didn't seem very cool.
Sure.
And for berries, like, the price differential is not that extreme. And so I was like, this is not super great. But Beth wanted to go get peaches. And I said, in my heart, what I said is, I don't want to do this, but I love you and I will. And I'll just, like, put a smile and be cool about it. And then we went, and Matt, I gotta say, it's a very different experience. And picking peaches is legit pretty fun.
All right. Man, my only real exposure to like super like farm fresh peaches is that when I was 15, 16 years old, I worked at Danny Boy's Farm Market in North Olmsted. It was my first job.
Yeah.
And we would get produce from Amish country. Like we got like a lot of really great produce. But we would get these super farm fresh peaches. And what I did not realize until that moment is that the peach fuzz that is on a peach, that is on like a fresh peach, is like 3 times as thick as what you find in a regular grocery store. And that stuff...
Yeah, and like prickly.
Oh, it's bad. Like, do not touch that and touch your eyes. It's like insulation. It's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did not. I got through. I was so excited that I ate one of the peaches immediately, and then I was like, "Oh, my lips!" And then I realized that I was like, "You gotta knock all the fuzz off." Anyway, so Matt, what is your actual Bun Vulcan thing that you made?
So my Bun Vulcan this week, Dave, is that I tried a new bread recipe, and it went terribly.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. The end of the story is good. So I have been making bread now I haven't bought bread since May. So however long that's been. I've been making my own bread for months. And so there's a recipe I've been meaning to try. The Bon Appetit's Best Bread, which I don't know if you've seen this recipe, but it's like a 3-day bread recipe that involves 3 different kinds of flour.
Well, that sounds delicious.
And I was like, okay, I've got I've got a scale, I've got a stand mixer, I've got all these different sorts of flour that I got specifically for this recipe. Like the first day you make a poulish or a pouliche, however you pronounce that.
I think it's pouliche, but I don't know.
It's basically like you're making a starter without making a starter. Like it's not a full sourdough starter or anything. It's just like you put flour and yeast and water in a bowl, cover it, and leave it for like 14 hours. So we did that. And then I added all the other ingredients. And then, like there's a lot of steps to this process. It's a very complicated recipe. At least it is a complicated recipe for me, at least. So I do all this stuff. And then I hit the point where they say, put it in the stand mixer. And then mix it until it all sort of comes together and pulls away from the side of the bowl and is like a ball of dough that you can work, right?
Right.
According to the recipe, this should take 8 to 12 minutes. Well, I don't know if I did something wrong with the recipe or if it's just that my stand mixer is junk, but it was in that thing for like 25 minutes and never became dough. It just became ooze that moved around in a different way.
Yeah, that is not what it's supposed to be, definitely.
And I was like, well, maybe if I add a little more flour, maybe it's too wet. But eventually I realized that I had added so much extra flour that at that point it wasn't even the same bread recipe. Like, it was just a different thing that I was trying to make. And I thought, you know what? Like, we are done with this. It's already
like,
10:30
this is trash
at night.
Now.
Like, it's 10:30 at night. I do not have the time or mental energy to convert this into a different type of bread and then turn it into a loaf that I can, like, do something with. Like, we are just done with this.
Listen, Matt, you gotta know when to hold them. You gotta know when to fold them.
Yeah,
you gotta know when to walk away. And when to throw your dough in the trash.
Yes. Well, I didn't throw it in the trash. I put it in a bag and I put it in the freezer and I'm taking it to the curb tonight because, it might be bad bread dough, but it's still like an alive fermenting thing and I don't want that in my trash can for 3 days.
Or, Matt, did you inadvertently create sourdough starter?
Ooh, man. I feel like what I created was perhaps scientifically interesting, but not culinarily useful. I feel like I would have to be a lot more experienced to figure out a way to turn that into something I could use. Anyway.
Call Uncle Dave, man. See what he thinks.
So the next day, I was like, well, I was supposed to have that other bread today, but instead I'm just going to make baguettes again. But the upside of this is that I figured out something about what I was doing marginally wrong with my baguettes.
Oh, man, that's the best.
Which is that, okay, so I had been using this recipe, which was actually for making like miniature sandwich baguettes, where it's like you start with like 500 grams of flour.
Okay.
And then when you break it down, you break it into like 6 even parts, and then you turn that into like a sandwich-sized baguette. And I was like, well, I don't want sandwich baguettes. I want more of like
I just want the whole, right.
Yeah,
I'll turn
like
it into a sandwich if I need it.
Yeah, like medium to regular-sized baguettes. And so instead of making it into 6, I made it into 4. And it's been working very well. The problem that I was having is that, like, although it was good, I wasn't getting that full, like, nutty crust flavor and, like crispy crunch. And I couldn't quite figure out what I was doing wrong. And eventually I realized that I had been an idiot. Because what I had done is I had made each individual baguette, like, notably larger, but I had not altered the baking time for them.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, well, like, the way the recipe goes is you put it in the oven for 5 minutes, and then you open up the oven, and, like, you spray the oven down again with, like, for a second time with some water from a spray bottle, and then you bake it another 15 minutes.
Right.
And so I just added like an extra 2 minutes to it. And I was like, oh, okay, now these are good. Like, I thought that the old ones were good and they were fine. But like, this is what was missing was like,
this was
just
like that
waiting
last
for 2 more minutes. Yeah.
Love it.
Very exciting times. So
Very
Bun Balkan
exciting
started
times,
badly, got good. Speaking of exciting things, Dave, what is our third star of the week?
Man, this is such a dopey. I don't have joke. This is not a joke at all. This is just like a thing that I'm excited about, and this is a personal achievement. You may recall, because you don't have access, I had to go back and check the archives, like upwards of a year ago, maybe almost a year and a half as I think about it, but a year and a half ago, I got these new Captains of Crush, because all weight training stuff is called that.
Sure.
Or stuff, something like that. It's all like Atlas, Kodiak pancakes, right? And
Right.
bear pancake.
The
Bear
destroyer.
pancake make you strong. Be strong like bear for bear pancake. And so I got these Captains of Crush grippers, and maybe you may recall me saying, I was like, I had a trainer, and I was like working with that, and like that was cool. And then I was like, oh, I'll get like the 1, 2, 3, and
Hey,
I could
Dave?
do the 1.
Dave,
Yeah.
I only want to interrupt you because it is not common knowledge that one of the sizes of these hand grippers is called the trainer, and it sounds
Oh,
like you
sorry.
hired a
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
trainer to help you with your grip strength.
No, I did not hire a human being to help me with this. It's just if you can't do the 1, there's a trainer underneath that. And that's the one I had been using, and I got the 1, and I could like barely do the 1, right? And I couldn't do the 2 at all, and I definitely couldn't do the 3 because it's insane. But I finally, a year and a half later, Matt, I have got this. I closed that number 2 gripper, and I just like I finally did it. And it was like I had a feeling in the morning. I was like, this is it. Like today's the day. I've been super close for like the last like 3 or 4 weeks, and I just kind of like warmed my hand up and I picked it up and I did it. And I literally like laughed, cheered out loud for myself. And I like walked over into the living room and I showed Beth and I was like, Beth, ha! And she was like, yeah, it was great. It was a really good, because I've been like really working on it for like a long time that I finally got this thing closed. The 3 is still, so
Well, we'll talk about the level 3 in like, you know, in the Megaranger season. We'll get around to it.
Yeah, man, maybe, probably not.
Megaranger is not next year, Dave.
Okay, good to know. That gives me a better time frame. What, Matt, is our 4th star of the week?
Dave, 4th star of the week is a video game that we have both been playing.
Yes, and it's a new game. It's not a new game.
It's new on consoles.
But I
it has
feel
been on
cheated.
Steam for a while.
Yes.
It is Pathfinder Kingmaker, which is a game that you had been excited about for a while that I really wasn't aware of until you bought it.
I had seen ads for it when it came out in 2018, and I was like, oh man, so exciting. And then they were like PC exclusive, and I was like, oh, won't. And then they just ported it with all the DLC and some patches and fixes onto consoles like last week. And I got it, and it is a blast. I am having so much fun playing this game. It is a isometric kind of top-down, 3/4 view, party-oriented adventure game in the vein of like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
it's like
so
a
like
very
Pathfinder, if you are not aware, is a tabletop role-playing game that was developed by a lot of people who had worked on the 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Who, when the 4th edition came out and was very dissimilar to the 3rd edition, those people left, started their own company, and just essentially made more and better 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, but called it Pathfinder.
Yeah, and it's a very, like, if you dig that style of game, it's a great game. And Pathfinder Kingmaker, it is a straight up port. Like, they just coded the player's guide and wrote an adventure for it. And other than that, like, you are just playing Pathfinder, but just by yourself on a computer.
Yeah,
and that sentence sounds weird and sad, but it's not.
Right. You would think that if I said, this video game captures all the magic of playing Dungeons and Dragons by yourself at home alone, you would think that sounds bad. But it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually extremely good. I am running into some problems playing the game, though. And here are the problems that I'm having.
I wonder if you and I are having the same troubles.
Is that because it is in fact a video game, like I'm playing it on an Xbox, right? I am thinking of it as a video game. And so, like, I'll see a monster and I'll be like, oh, like, I can probably fight that monster. Or, like, I can figure out a way to fight the monster or, like, whatever, right? And then I'll go to fight the monster.
Right, because that's how video games work.
Because that's how video games work. And then this game very quickly reminds you that you are playing a video game, but really what you're playing is Pathfinder. And you cannot fight that troll because you're, like, 4th level.
Right.
And then you just die. And then you're like, oh. And, like, it takes me a few... Like, I'm getting better at it mentally because I'm, like, having to, like, retrain myself. But it'll take me a few times to be like, I just fought the troll wrong. Like, surely there's a way to fight the troll that I can
if I do this better, I can beat the Manticore.
And you can't, because it's a Manticore and you're like 3rd level or something.
Right. The problem that I am having with this game is, okay, so it is only kind of a video game in the way that you say, but the problem is that it's also only kind of Dungeons and Dragons, because in my head I'm like, well, this is Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for years. The problem is that it's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's Pathfinder, which is very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, and based on a lot of the same rules as 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, but like just has different classes. And so like I have a person in my party. She is an Inquisitor, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's a D&D class or a Pathfinder class. And I just don't have like a baked in knowledge of how they work. Like if I had a monk on my team,
like what
I know
she's
how
there
monks
for.
work. You know, like monks are unarmed, they've got high saves, and they can attack a bunch of times per round. That's
Ooh.
basically monks, right?
Wait a minute. You have a monk on your team?
No, I'm just saying if I did.
Oh, okay. I was surprised because like my character is a monk and I don't have a monk on my team. And I was like, I wonder if they've like put in like
No.
you know.
No, I would love to have a monk. Instead, what I have is an Inquisitor who is like something. I think it's a divine class, but it's not a cleric. And like it has spells, but the spells don't seem to work.
I also ended up with like a Magus, and I'm not really sure what that dude's deal is. So I just slotted him out for something that I recognized a little bit better.
Oh, I made a Magus because I thought I would be able to like retrain my character if I didn't like the class. Turns out
it's glitched, unfortunately.
It turns out like that aspect of the game is glitched, so I'm stuck in my current class unless I want to start the game over, which I don't. And B, like at least the first 2 levels of being a Magus is just like being a bad fighter that has 2 spell slots. Now that I'm 3rd, I think I just hit 4th level actually. The Magus is getting a little better and I might stick with it. But it's been a very weird transition. Anyway, I feel like we are like hemorrhaging listeners by the second the longer we talk about like Pathfinder character classes. So, what is our 5th and final star of the week?
So, Matt, the 5th star of the week is actually Baby Watch.
We interrupt your regular broadcast of the Super Sentai Brothers to bring you a breaking news update.
Baby Watch. It's a heavy segment week this week, Matt. But that's the way the baguette tears apart crustily in a satisfying way. This metaphor has gotten away from me.
You know, Dave, Mark is so fond of making stingers for segments that if we can just figure out a way to have each of the 5 stars be a segment with its own stinger, we only have to do like half the work because we're just padding out the whole 5 stars with stingers.
Anyways, so here's the thing. My kids love trucks. Trucks of all sorts, shapes, and sizes. They love them. They're obsessed with them. You know this. Sure. I do think it's interesting because we have never encouraged trucks other than like the kids are like, we would like trucks, and we'll be like, okay, well then like you can have toy trucks or toy trucks, books or whatever. But I wonder what it is about trucks. I think it's just that they're like big and loud. Anyways.
Yeah.
Because they love trucks. So they are technically buddy bears, but Sugar Bean loves trucks too, so she wears them. He has truck underpants.
Okay. Very cool.
They're very cool. Here's the problem with these truck underpants is that whoever designed these truck underpants is a moron who has never met children and understands theoretically that kids like trucks. Because here's the problem with these is that they're underwear, like they're briefs, and there's a cool picture of a truck. There's like they're labeled like Monday through Sunday, and there's a cool picture of a truck on each of the unders, but there's only one picture of a truck, like it's not a pattern, it's just like a print on there, and it's on the butt. So what this means is that my children refuse to wear these underwear the right way around. Because if you wore them, if they wore them the right way, they couldn't see the truck. And if you can't see the truck on your unders, like what's even the point, Dad?
Why bother?
Why bother to have truck unders if you can't see the truck? And so, like, I tried at first to be like, no, that's backwards. And then they just looked at me like I was the idiot. And I'm like, but then I couldn't see the truck. And I was like, well, it's hard to argue with that logic. And so they just wear these underwear backwards all the time because whoever designed these doesn't understand that the kids need to see the trucks. That's all I got. Man, those kids are getting so big. It's wild.
You know what else is wild, though? It's episode 18 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. Protect It, The Mysterious Boy's Forest. It was written by Naruhisa Arakawa. Its original air date, June 15th, 1997. We're going to take a break. We are going to talk about it when we come back. Okay, welcome back. So, we are still at the Family Fun Farm.
Yes. So this is actually astonishingly, I had never noticed this before. I thought that Nasu Highlands was like a name of part of the park, right? Like Magic Kingdom, Epcot Center, Rindo Lake Family Fun Farm, Nasu Highlands. That's not actually the case. Nasu Highlands is like a national park in Japan. Like, that's just a region.
And it just happens to be next to Rindo Lake Family Fun Farm?
Yeah, like Rindo Lake is either in there or immediately adjacent to it or something. But
yes. So this episode is actually a lot more about the Nasu Highlands than it is about Rindo Lake, but they're still there. So we start in the forest. There are some punk teens driving around. They're in a Jeep. There's a guy and a girl. The girl is smoking. The guy looks like he's drinking a beer, but then the camera sort of like makes sure to cut in on it so that you know he's drinking canned coffee.
Yeah, that was a weird thing to specify in my mind. My notes just say that they're terrible Americans. Like, when I saw them, like, the vibe I got was that they just, like, told these actors, like, just pretend you're terrible Americans and do that. And then, like, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, they're like littering and shouting and, you know, messing up a forest. A little boy shows up. And he tells them to stay out. And
yes.
Not only does he tell them this, but the wind blows and picks up some leaves, and the leaves land on the windshield of the car and spell out, like, stay out. I mean, not in English. They spell it out in...
Yeah, it was actually... I thought that was a really, really clever effect. Because obviously what they did is they put it on and then they blew it away and did it backwards.
Right.
But it really...
It looks very cool.
It really worked. It looked very cool, and I thought it was a very clever way to go about doing that. So then they freak out, and then they try to leave, and then he continues to do like his weird like druid attack, and their car crashes, which does strike me as counterproductive. Clearly a nature spirit little boy. If you want them to leave, like, you need to leave their car intact so that they can go. Because what you've done now is both prevented them from leaving and made a giant litter.
Yeah, I mean...
giant car litter
the other thing
is what you've done
is
now.
That this is the last time we see these terrible litter teens. So it is possible that they, you know, got their car out of the ditch and left. It is equally possible that this was a fatal car accident. And that, like, this
extra
forest
litter.
child has just killed them.
Now you have a car litter, and then you have, well, I guess anything that's biodegradable is only litter for so long. But anyways,
yes,
so
human litter, a great way to think of these things, Dave.
Wait, listen, you're the one who has entered the idea that this child spirit has murdered these teenagers.
Hey,
I'm just
feel
trying
like
to...
Naruhisa Arakawa is the one that brought this up.
Oh, I don't think we actually mentioned that, but yes, it is Masahiro Arakawa who wrote this very good episode.
Of course I mentioned
So, did you?
Yeah.
Did I completely... Oh, Matt, I thought I was tired rolling into this. I didn't realize I was that... I did not realize I was that sleepy, bro. Sorry.
It's cool.
I
Question
must
me,
have just
will you?
completely zoned out. Anyways, so the next scene, it's 4 a.m.
I really hope that I mentioned it now. I would be very embarrassed if I hadn't.
Well, listen, this is gonna break bad for one of us, Matt. And I'm content either way.
Original
I'm not
air
invested
date,
in
June
this.
15th, 1997. Of course, you can watch along on the DVDs or at shoutfactory.tv. Anyway, where were we?
Okay, that's good, but I'm not starting this part over. So it's 4 a.m. Koichiro is up because of course he is.
Right.
He does just flip on the lights. I really appreciate Koichiro's attitude towards getting up because he's rooming with Shun and Kenta, and his attitude towards getting up is, I'm getting up because it's the right thing to do. And so I am just going to proceed as though what I'm doing is completely normal, and I'm going to like turn all the lights on and do my thing. And the fact that you guys aren't up, like, that's on you, but like, I'm making no accommodations for your laziness.
Right.
Because, of course, what Koichiro is up to do is train.
Right. He's out for a jog and a swim because whether or not he is on vacation, he is still a Megaranger, and he still needs to train daily to keep himself in prime physical form. And also, he needs to show off the wonderful facilities here at Rindo Lake Family Farm.
He does. I think he even says, like, this hotel has wonderful facilities for staying in shape. So then he's jogging by, and he sees Mr. Iwa, his teacher, and Mr. O is like super impressed. He's like, wow, Koichiro, you're up like really early. Like, good for you. And Koichiro says, oh yeah, well, like, I wanted to get in a workout. Like, I'm impressed. I'm a little surprised you're up this early. And then Mr. O gives his own sort of like advertisement for this hotel, which is, he says, oh no, I'm just going to bed. So what that lets you know is that the bar is open all night.
It's my kind of guy. Not really a morning person myself. Anyway, so he goes out for a jog. He's jogging in the forest, enjoying the wonderful fresh air here in the Nasu Highlands, adjacent to Rindo Lake Family Farm. He sees the litter that the teens had left earlier. He picks it up, sees that there isn't like a trash can around, and just like puts the empty cans in his pockets.
Matt, there is a little blurb that you inadvertently skipped over. We do have a quick cutaway to the Nezare dimension, and what we find out is that Dr. Hinalar has identified that this part of the Nasu Highlands has a lot of like land energy because a meteorite landed there, and what the Nezare are going to do is weaponize it and use this meteorite energy to destroy all mankind.
Ah, yes. So,
then cut to
Koichiro picking up the litter. As he picks up the litter, the little boy that we saw earlier sort of pops out of the forest and greets him. Because now he's like, okay, this guy is cool with the forest. Now we can chat.
Yeah, he's a little surprised. He's like, wait a minute. You don't all totally suck? And Koichiro, he doesn't say you all, because that would be a little bit of a tell. But he's like, oh, you're not all terrible. And Koichiro's like, oh yeah, this trash. He's like, yeah, it's a real shame that some people litter, but like, I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah, like, I'm a human, I care about the planet, so that's what we're going to do.
He gets a quick call that there's Nezare energy. And he's like, kids, you got to go. And then there's birds flying and Koichiro's running. But the kid does he like teleports. And if you've ever seen any anime from this sort of time period, you know the sound effect that happens every time he like disappears and appears and teleports around, because as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's the teleport sound.
Absolutely.
And so
he is out of Koichiro's field of vision, and Koichiro no longer sees him. So when Koichiro henshins into Mega Black, the kid is still actually there. He's just like behind a tree. So he sees him transform into Mega Black, and he knows he's a Megaranger. This is important for later. We're dealing with a mushroom Nezare this week. He's a mushroom man.
Yes.
He's got a big mushroom hat on.
He does. It's very cool. I like his look a lot. Although, and I don't know why, it might go all the way back to our AD&D game with Sean in his basement. But I've got kind of a soft spot for like fantasy, like anthropomorphic mushroom people.
Yeah, man, what's that D&D race called? It starts with an M, right? It's not Minox, because that's the little
No,
like the cave bats
myconoids?
from
Something like that?
something like that.
Anyways, so yeah, he's a mushroom monster. And his attack is that he breathes fire, and he's like, I'm going to burn this whole forest down. And that, to me, seems like a very weird pick to pair up with a mushroom man. Like, it feels like, okay, like, I get why they pick a mushroom, right? So, like, oh, it's in a forest, mushroom. But, like, the mushroom is part of the forest. Like, the mushroom is supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Mushrooms are in forests.
By the way, you were right.
It feels like you should pick...
Dave, it is a myconid.
Ah, awesome. It feels like there should be, like Bulldozer Nezare, or, like, Forest Fire Nezare, or, like something that is going to destroy the forest. And then also, it seems weird to give a mushroom man a fire attack unless he's, like, trying to prepare himself to be on a hamburger. Like,
Delicious.
that doesn't... I mean, I love a sautéed mushroom, don't get me wrong.
Right, but that's less of a
It just does
mushroom
seem
man
weird.
and more of a mushroom Swiss man.
Yeah.
Little blue cheese, sautéed onion, you know.
So,
Man, remember back in the day when the mushroom Swiss burger was one of like every restaurant you went to was like, well, we have our regular hamburger, we've got our cheeseburger, and then there's the mushroom Swiss burger, available at every restaurant.
at every restaurant, there was also the bacon and blue. Everybody's got a bacon and blue burger. Yeah. What are other burgers that everyone has?
Oh,
Everyone's got the mushroom Swiss. Everyone's got the bacon and blue. Everyone's got the standard cheese or cheese and bacon.
I feel like there was a like a guacamole variant that also had like a pico de gallo instead of like regular tomato and onion.
I have seen that, but that's not an everywhere. Everybody's got a barbecue burger. Everyone has a barbecue
got a
burger with like
barbecue
cheddar
burger.
and onion rings and barbecue sauce. Everybody's got one. We should do a
Or
top
li-
of the tops for the burger, Matt.
I think
Anyways.
we did.
No, we did pizza. We talked about we only ever actually did pizza. We talked about doing more.
Oh,
I'm an advocate. I'm a strong advocate for top of the tops. I think it's a good segment.
Worked out a list in my head of what I would say if we did that, and so in my mind,
Well,
we
it's
already
almost as
talked
good as
about
doing it. Yeah. So, anyways, Mega Black just attacks this mushroom man, and like he just fights for a second, and then the other Rangers get in on it. Kenta is particularly angry at Mushroom Nezare because he's forced him to be awake.
Yes,
And then Miku,
yeah, she's mad because they're supposed to be part of like a how to milk cows like fun class right now. Like she's missing out on her activities, and she is not thrilled about it.
And she's not happy. So there's a quick fight. There's a very cool like bullet, like follow the bullet effect that they do for the Mega Sling. Like Mega Yellow shoots it, and you just kind of are following it. It's like blasting through the Kune Kune. So that's pretty neat. They shoot Mushroom Man's cap off. Mm-hmm. Like they just blast it and it pops off. And the kid is angry now. The kid is angry about all this fighting. I think he's concerned. The idea is he's concerned that it's going to destroy the forest. But then Mushroom teleports and the Rangers are just kind of confused.
And that's the end of the fight, and they just sort of like go back to the park now.
Yeah. So now we get 2 lessons. The first lesson is a little bit of a lesson about milking cows. And the second lesson is yet another reminder of differing social norms about what is and is not okay for children's television in America versus Japan.
Yeah.
Because here's what happens. They go to the cow milking lesson. And there's like a close-up on the udder, and Kenta and Miku are like milking the cow. And Miku is like, wow, this is amazing. This feels so cool. And then she says, it feels so soft, just like Chisato's breasts. And Kenta is like, excuse me, what?
Excuse me?
What? Excuse me? And then Miku says, yeah, exactly, excuse me. Like, I just went for it.
Yeah. Now...
You can't see the face I'm making, but, like...
It's not what I was expecting out of this episode.
And Chisato's like, Miku, like, come on, man. Like, could we not, please? Like, that's not very cool. And then Kenta is just like, oh, man. As though, like, had he been there in the moment, he also would have been okay to, like, cop a feel.
Yeah, it's just...
There's no context for this.
No, I mean, honestly, the context that I'm imagining is that, like, at the end of episode 5 or whatever it was, when Miku says, like, I know who I want to go on a date with, and grabs Chisato, and, like, they walk off together, I am assuming that, like, that is the context of this, but there's no actual explanation in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only context is everyone wants to date Chisato.
Sure. This is firmly established.
Yeah, okay, so anyways, Kuchuru is, like, pretty... And then they never talk about this again. Like, this is a total
aside.
This has nothing to do... Yeah, to be clear, this has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. Like, 30 seconds about Chisato's breasts, back to this weird kid in the forest. Because Kuchuru is totally stuck on this kid. He's like, this is really weird. He's like, I've got a sense... You know, like, my spider sense is tingling, like, something weird is going on, but, like, I can't place it. Like, I don't exactly know.
The teacher
Mr.
sees him. He sees him thinking about this, and he's like, there's something going on with you. Are you in love? Kuchuru's like, no, I'm not in love. There's just a weird situation I'm thinking about. And then he stares off sort of behind the teacher and sees that the kid has appeared. And so now he's just sort of, like, staring off into the distance, and the teacher's like, okay, he's definitely in love. I mean, or there's something very wrong with him, but I'm not going to put into the effort to figuring out which.
I'm already done with this. So, but then Kuchuru sees the kid.
Yeah.
And the kid is, like, kind of teleporting around, and Kuchuru, nobody else can see him, only Kuchuru. So this kid can make himself, like, selectively visible. And there's, like, a little running chasing where he's, like, trying to catch up with the kid, and he finally does. And then the kid's like, listen. Kuchuru's like, what? Like, what's going on? And Kuchuru says, listen, the forest is going to be destroyed because of the rangers. I thought you cared about the forest. And Kuchuru says, well, if there's a monster in the forest, we might have to fight the monster, obviously.
Yeah, but, like, we have no interest in destroying a forest. That's not what we do. And the kid's just like, listen, I thought you understood. Clearly you don't. Just don't destroy my forest, please. I'm out. And then he just, like, turns into, like, green pixels and flies away.
Yeah. So what Mushroom Nezare is recuperating. We get kind of, like, a further look at him. He does have a very cool look. And I was struck again, like, there's so many cool things you could have done with a mushroom monster. Like, he could have had, like, a weird decay power. He could have had, like, a hallucinogenic power. He could have had, like, a poison power. Like, there's a ton of things.
The thing is, we did just do a poison spore monster. Well, poison dust monster with the
poison dust monster. I'm just saying, like, there's, like, a million... It was just so weird, because there's, like, a million things that you could have done that would have narratively worked in this episode that also would have thematically worked for a mushroom.
Yeah.
Like, I know we already talked about this mushroom Swiss man. It's just real dumb. But he does look super cool.
Right.
He's got a real neat look because he's like a mushroom man, but then he's got like a Decepticon faceplate kind of planted in the middle there. It's rad.
And he does have like his large, like the cap of a mushroom hat that he can like throw at people. But when that got blown up before, he's got like a little miniature, like beret version of that on underneath, which is kind of adorable. So he's doing better. He is like fully recovered and is ready to go destroy this forest, which is bad,
yes,
obviously.
Clearly. So we get a quick thing, and they are the Rangers. They're back at the hotel. Kuchuru is occupied. Shun and Kenta see him. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna go down to the baths, to the onsen," and then we get Miku and Chisato, and they're already in the baths. this is another weird moment because, like, obviously they are, like, under the water and covering themselves, but they are very definitely naked. Or, like, are meant to be. Which, again, like, you know, in these Japanese, like, that's totally culturally appropriate. Like, you are naked in an onsen,
Right.
but, like, it is just still weird to me that, like, it's television. Like,
Yeah,
I know
it's-
we talk about this, like, because every season there's, like, some weird thing where I'm just like, how is this kids' TV? And it's just like, it's Japan,
And the thing
man.
is,
Like,
like,
they're fine with it.
in
Like,
a
it's just
lot
a different
of
culture.
anime that I've seen, there is, like, an episode where they go to hot springs, and it's a whole thing. And this has also happened in other Sentai. But I think that happened in Kaku Ranger, definitely. Maybe
Oh, yeah, it
Jetman
did.
as
That's
well.
right.
But definitely Kaku Ranger. But it feels different in Megaranger because they are high schoolers.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point. I hadn't, like, zeroed in on why it did feel weirder, but it does feel weird. Anyways.
So Miku and Chisato are talking about how it's so nice there, and Miku says, like, you know, someday I would like to come back here with a boyfriend, and is sort of wistful. Chisato's like, so Shun, right? Because you're in love with Shun, which we've seen in different episodes. Miku vehemently denies this. Vehemently,
but then she does kind of sink into the water a little bit, so, like, obviously.
right.
So, man, coming hard for Jetman, crafting some legit, like, interpersonal relationship storylines happening in the background.
Yeah.
Strong contender, man. Strong contender. So we jump in media res. The guys are having a discussion about this kid. Ko is like, I keep seeing him. Like, I really don't know what's going on. Like, he's a forest spirit or something, but, like, I don't totally know.
The other two guys seem to be kind of blowing him off. Like, why are you listening to some kid? As though the kid is not a magical forest spirit who Ko has seen teleport.
Well, this is again, this is, you just have to bow to the narrative of, like, somebody has to be the like, doubtful naysayer, and these are the dudes that are in every episode.
Right.
Because what actually makes sense is Koichiro says, I met a weird magical forest spirit, and he helped me fight a monster. And the other superheroes on the team are like, oh yeah, we also saw that kid. We should figure out what's going on. They don't. So Koichiro sees the kid. He's like, why can't anybody else see you? And the kid says, well, I trust you because you picked up those cans that one time. So clearly you're cool. And then, but he goes and Koichiro is chasing him and he chases him. And then obviously Koichiro ends up running into the girls' dressing room. And the girls are dressed, but they're like, you pervert. And he's like, wait, did you see a little kid in here? And they're like, no, obviously not. We did not see a child in here.
We cut to a few minutes later. Everyone has put on, like, a bathrobe, and they're on a conference call with Dr. Kubota, and they're like, man, I don't know why this kid thinks that we're gonna destroy his forest. And
Like, we, the Mega Rangers specifically, are going to be the cause of
and
this.
Dr. Kubota's like, oh, that forest?
Ooh, that one?
Well, funny thing,
Actually.
we are actually planning to destroy that forest. Because the thing is, every time there's a problem, they need to call Galaxy Mega and get all their digitizers and stuff, but it all comes from space because that satellite lives in space. And so Dr. Kubota's been thinking, well, if we build a base on Earth, then we can...
Like, if we build a relay, effectively.
Yeah, like, we can get that stuff to you faster, and you could be more effective in protecting the planet. So, like, yeah, we're planning on destroying this forest, but, like, we've done ecological studies to know that it's not going to have, like, a huge impact on, like, the region, and we think that it's going to be a net positive for the Earth. So that was the plan.
And,
like, we weren't keeping it from you, we just hadn't mentioned it to you yet.
Right. Kenta doesn't care. He's like, well, we'll defeat monsters better. That's like a net win. Koichiro seems weirdly, he's like, obviously he's like very emotional because he's like met this kid and everybody else is like, come on, Koichiro, like just get over it.
Right. He
weird.
wanders outside, like onto the balcony, and is sort of brooding on this. And Chisato comes out, and she says two very interesting things. First, she says, listen, this is a weird situation. I understand how you feel. There's no real right or wrong here, but for what for as much as it matters, I agree with you. Like, I understand there's two sides to this, but like in my gut, I feel like you're right. And then she says something else very interesting, which she says,
This is crazy.
So cheer up, leader, because apparently,
What?
like, okay, and we have talked about this, how the, like, Koichiro feels like the leader in the way that in Kaku Ranger, Tsuruhime felt like the leader in like a, you know, like they're the one who is actually the most competent and kind of like corrals the rest of the group.
Yeah.
But like, you know, he's Mega Black. He's not Mega Red. Like, so the idea that they are like in the show explicitly saying like, yes, Koichiro is the leader of this group totally shocked me. And man, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't have, but it did.
Well, I think it was shocking because it was shocking that they used the language. Like, oh yeah, you're the leader. Because even in Kaku Ranger, even when Tsuruhime was very obviously kind of like operating as the leader of the team, Sasuke is still like nominally in charge and does grow to really be in charge kind of like by mid to late season.
Whereas Kenta, at least so far, is like, he's the guy who sits in the middle of the cockpit when they're piloting Galaxy Mega, and he's the one who has like a special standalone weapon. When like everyone else combines their weapons, he's got his own thing. But other than that, like, there's really no indication that he is in any way.
Yeah, shows no aptitude and also no interest.
Right. He
in being
usually
the leader.
stands in the middle when they're doing a henshin, but like after that, it's kind of it.
Yeah. So this is pretty nuts that this is the case. So anyways, we go back to the forest. Koichiru's running. He meets the kid, and the kid's like, so, one cool human that I've met ever who I know will never betray me. What's up? And Koichiru's like, we could probably move you to a new forest and you'd be fine, right?
Right. Like, what if we just relocate you?
Yeah, obviously, Forest Spirit Kid immediately sees through this steaming mound.
Right.
And is like, I knew it. You picked up those cans. It was a lie. I mean, you did pick up the cans. I saw you. But, like, just your spirit was a lie. You weren't picking up cans in your spirit. You don't really care about the forest.
Thankfully, before they can get much further into this, Mushroom Nezare attacks.
Yes. So the kid runs in. Koichiro tries to help. They do like a blast. There's a couple little fights.
There's a bit.
Kid,
so like the four other Rangers show up, right?
Yes.
And the kid, and I feel like you were just about to say this when I cut you off, but I'm going to say it anyway, unless you cut me off again. Which, you know, it's the ebb and flow of the show. It happens. So this kid, he's like, no, I will defeat this monster by myself. This is my forest. I am the forest, and I don't like that guy. And he summons up the power of the forest to, like, transform himself into an energy blast that flies at the monster, and it's extremely cool.
Yeah, he kind of cannonballs himself.
Yeah, very much.
Not a literal cannonball, like Cannonball from the New Mutants.
Yeah, like Sam Guthrie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he is not nigh invulnerable when he's blasting. And so, because Mushroom Nezare has already gone giant, he just slaps this kid out of the sky. Which is not great for him.
Yeah, it's not a concern.
So now that the kid is out of the picture, they're like, well, okay, now we're up. Let's call Galaxy Mega.
Yeah, so they do that. Then we do get an actual mushroom attack. He kind of like shakes his big head around and like some energy spores fly out, and that's cool. The kid wakes up and he sees both that Mushroom Nezare is really about to destroy the forest and also that Galaxy Mega is stopping him. We get a weird moment from Mushroom Nezare where he like holds up his hand and you just see the back of it, like he's showing you his glove, and then he like backswings and attacks with his claws. It's just it looks a little bit like the moment from Single Ladies when Beyonce like holds up her like Thanos glove. Mm-hmm. But then he claws you and he's a mushroom man instead of an international queen of pop.
Sure. So a little different. Mushroom Desiree like takes his hat off and throws it at them, and like blades come out, and it's like this bladed chakram thing. But they like blast it out of the sky. So now he's back
It's like
down to his...
It's like a Kung Lao move.
Yeah, he's back to his little hat instead of his big hat. And he starts shooting fire at them. Just like this blast of fire. They have their shield up. They're sort of absorbing the fire, or, like deflecting it off the shield, but they're not able to sort of approach him. And Dr. Kubota gets on the radio and says, dudes, you have like jets in your feet. Just jump over behind him and cut him with your sword. Which seems like a good idea, except that if they move right now, like they are the only thing in between the forest and the fire. And if they move, then the forest is just going to get obliterated.
Yes.
In a conflagration. In a big fire.
In a big old bad fire.
A fire
big,
is a
bad
word
fire.
I know how to pronounce.
Yeah. So, and the kid sees this, and he's like, oh, they must be... And then the other Rangers are like, we get it, Koichiro, we're with you. And then the kid looks up and he sees it, and he's like, they really do love the forest. And he says, he's a great knight, he goes, children of the kid does, children of the forest, give me your strength. And I was really expecting, like, animals to come out. There's not. There's just, like a bunch of wind.
Yeah, he just generates a leaf tornado, which is very cool. Which, like, pops out and is able to, like, stagger Mushroom Nezare.
And in that moment, they get in the Mega Saber. So that's it. That's the end of Mushroom Nezare. Great job. They're back down on the ground, and the kid is, like, fading in and out. And I'm like, dude, are they going to kill this magical forest boy? But they don't. Thank goodness. It's not quite that raw yet. They just say, he says, I don't think I'm going to be able to come out for a while. Like, I'm not going to be able to manifest, I guess.
He's
I just got to,
a lot of his forest energy.
Right.
But also, like, at this point, he genuinely thinks, like, well, I'm not going to be able to come out for a while, and you're destroying my forest, so I guess this is it. But Chisato pops in and is like, hey, listen, don't worry about that. I talked to Dr. Kubota, and we are reconfiguring our ground-based plans. We're not going to destroy your forest. We'll just have to work a little extra hard to work around the fact that our stuff is based in space, and maybe we'll find a ground space later, but, like, the forest is safe from Megaranger, which is awesome.
Yes, we'll be cool. And he's like, great, cool. So then the trip is over, and they're heading home, and Chisato sits down. They're on the bus, and Chisato sits down to Koichiro, and he's like, no. And she says, what's wrong? And he says, we're just going to destroy another forest. And she says, no, it'll be fine. And he says, no, all forests will be destroyed by people. And she says, well, I think it'll be okay. And he goes, and then he just immediately is like, yeah, it probably will. And then he does like a big smile and a thumbs up.
And they're having like a moment, right? And as they're having this moment, like Kenta, Miku, and Shun like pop their heads over the side, like over and around the chair that they're standing on. And they're like, so you guys are having a moment, huh? Look
like,
at this.
What up,
pretty
nerds?
cozy.
You guys are getting cozy. And they're like, no, it's not like that. But it is
100% like that.
It's 100% like that.
So anyway, Miku is in love with Shun. Koichiro and Chisato are obviously going to end up together, and Kenta will die alone.
Kenta's a big dummy.
Kenta will just be like a weirdo hanging out in an arcade by himself well into his 30s.
But I do like Kenta.
Oh, I love Kenta. He just doesn't seem to have a life plan, which is fine.
So, Matt.
Yes, that is the end of that episode. But of course, it is not the end of our episode because first, Dave, we need to determine where Mushroom Nezare lands on the Creature Royale.
Now, astonishingly, I don't think we have another mushroom monster.
Was that true?
Yeah, it seems weird, right?
I mean, I'm not inclined to disbelieve
there are
you.
other
You're
plant
an honest
monsters.
Man, but...
Right, no, there's lots of other plant monsters, but no, we don't have any other specifically mushroom monsters.
Okay, well, The thing about Mushroom Nezare is that he looks really cool. And this episode is good. But, like, he's very Monster of the Week, right? Like, he's just like, he is a guy who is there to destroy the forest. Like, as a character, there's not much going on with him. As a superpower, he's not particularly interesting. It's a good monster design and a good episode, but that's kind of all there is.
Yeah, I feel like as great as this season is, it is suffering from a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, there've been some outliers. There've been some really good ones that ranked high on the list, but, like, you know, I don't think Mushroom Nezare is better than... No, he's not better than Barra Fawcett. He's not better than Copy Empress. He's not better than Traffic Light Dimension.
Not.
Is he better than Poison Moth? No, he's not better than Poison Moth Nezare. Poison Moth Nezare was really interesting.
Yeah, he was.
Poison Moth Nezare was very interesting and is at number 101 on our list. So, like, that's kind of where the list is right now.
No, I'm shooting down, and I'm like Duke Trump, Purse Monk, the Tofu Hermit, Poison Gas Rat. Like, these are all really cool monsters. Yeah, like, sadly, as cool as he is, he really is. He's down pretty low.
Okay. I think he goes at number 143, in between Azuki Arai, who was a bean-washing monster who masqueraded as an evil policeman and had, like, his own evil police station with, like, an underground lair, and above PP Rappa, who was just, like, a monster who had, like, big numbers that he made explode.
Yeah. All right.
Do you think that's a good spot?
I think that's fair.
Cool. So
we could, man, you could nitpick forever, but I think that's a good spot. I think that's a good spot.
Cool. Well, in that case, that is going to do it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you all you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out what we're talking about on Twitter, we are at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. If you want to give us a rating or review on your favorite podcatcher, that would be just lovely of you. Tell a friend, get the word out. Just have a ball, folks. Anyway, the Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you'd like to listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.